Well, it's an honor to be with you guys tonight. I love speaking about God's Word. Like Nate was saying, I love the Scriptures, and I love people, I love God. And so this is a treat to be with you guys. I believe in what you're doing. I'd like to open with prayer. God, we thank you for this time together. And we thank you for your Scriptures. We thank you for revealing yourself to us, not only in nature, but through your special revelation in the Bible, because you want to know us, and you want us to fulfill your purpose for each of us on this planet. Thank you for this program, 412 ministry that Joyelle has sponsored. Really cool. I'm impressed with these guys, Lord, and I pray your blessing on their year as they embark on another year of learning and training and serving and having special relationships with mentors and mentees. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen. All right. Well, I want to show you a little bit about me. This is my family, which is not the normal family. It's too many young kids. I didn't say too many. I didn't mean that. Did I? No, it's just right. We had 3 biological children and decided to adopt, and God blessed us not with 1 child as we planned, but with 3 children from South Carolina. And so we have a transracial blended family. And it's a challenge, but it is really cool. I just got a text from my oldest, who's now in middle school. She can only text family, don't worry, we're very careful with that sort of thing. She's got an iPod that she can do the thing on. But anyway, to check on me, and it's good to hear from home. But they may come up later. If you have questions about that later on, let me know. All right, tonight's questions, I should say. What is this generation of students like? What do you guys like? What are you after? There's some stats on you, all right? I'll let you hold it. And then what does it mean to be, a mentor? And then finally, what do I have to offer the next generation? Speaking of you guys as mentors specifically on that one. But also, if you're a mentee, you can be thinking, what do I have for the next generation? Because I just met some of you guys are seniors, you're moving on, and it won't be long before you're making disciples, as you've been making disciples, because that's, after all, the mission here at Joyelle is multiplication. So let's look at Generation Z first off. A couple of things here. 51% of these guys believe that happiness is the way to go. Like that's the ultimate goal. If I'm just happy, then it's right. And oftentimes people use happiness as a gauge of what's right and what's wrong. If it makes me feel good, if it doesn't make me feel bad, or maybe for you, if it doesn't make you feel bad, or if what I'm doing doesn't make you feel bad, then that's okay. But that's the ultimate goal. And then of those, 43% believe that success is financial. So if I have enough money, then I'm good. If I have a nice car, if I have fast Wi-Fi, then hey, everything's fine. But people are finding out that's not true. But most people believe it's true, at least at this age. And so these are people from, I believe it's 1995 to 2010, born in that range. Almost half is non-white, so we're seeing a generation who is different. Like the minorities are more, and the majority is becoming a minority in our country. It's the different attitudes we have between one another. This isn't all bad, though. This is just the way it is. The screen use is huge. Like I just mentioned, my daughter she got an iPod. My wife got it for her. She thought it was like the old iPods like we had, which didn't have, had a screen on it, but didn't play video. The screen was just so you could pick your song. It had a little wheel on it, you would dial it up. And she said, what could the harm be getting her an iPod? Well, she didn't realize it was an iPhone without cell phone capability. But if you make a FaceTime voice call or audio call, it's pretty much a cell phone. And so we've got the thing locked down pretty good, but still, it seems like everybody's got one, and she's complaining because even in 6th grade, some people are walking around with $1,000 telephones, computers in their hands. We're like, whoa! We got some packs with some other families that were like, look, flip phone until 8th grade. No, 8th grade, they get the flip phone, and then we'll move on from there. And so, and we've got some partners, so I think we can hold strong. Because when they say, we're the only ones who that. No, you're not. No, the Simons also do not have that. We know for a fact. We made a pact in blood. But screen time's a big deal. Attention spans are smaller now. Gender is now how one feels inside. A third of people believe that. I think that number's growing with what we've been learning about gender. We had a session earlier today about gender. There's a lot of confusion about gender. My wife's a counselor, and what they go by is the diagnostic manual. It's called the DSM. But the most recent version has taken out gender dysphoria and has renamed some things. Like homosexuality used to be considered a mental illness, and it was treated as such. And I was just telling somebody today, the doctor who got that out of the DSM, because, hey, if it's a mental disease, we're not going to label it as marriage for a mental illness. But they removed it, and what he found out is my patients don't do any better who struggle with gender dysphoria or gender identity disorders, it's sometimes called, or even homosexuality. But a lot of our young people are watching TV, and they see the representation, you could argue over-representation of gay characters. As 2%, maybe 3% of the population considers themselves gay. But if you look on the number of characters on TV, it's far greater than that. So it's a bit skewed. So a lot of people believe, well, if you feel that way, then that must be okay. Again, going back to the happiness. If it makes you feel good, well, then it must be right. Why? Because they don't have a biblical worldview like you guys are getting trained on. You're getting taught what is right and what is wrong, and why it's right and why it's wrong, and why you have the authority to say, no, this is the way it ought to be. But if you don't have a biblical worldview, you don't have a leg to stand on, because there's nowhere to base morality. You say, well, why is that wrong? Well, because everybody thinks so. Well, what if everybody doesn't think so? What if everybody changes their mind? Well, then it's the state's job. Whatever the state says, that's the way we should base morality. Well, what if your state disagrees with the other state? Like, let's say you're Nazi Germany, and the state says, we ought to murder these people because they're less than human. Does that make it right? And of course, we would say no. People are made in God's image. But if you don't have a God who's made a moral lawgiver, it's hard to make an argument for a moral law. So this is confusing, because a lot of people don't have the foundation that you're being given, and they're confused about gender. And the way they look at those people is not, man, you're really messed up. It's more like, no, let me help you. Our attitude as Christians is, how can we help you? How can we love you? And one way is speaking truth, which we'll talk about in a little bit. A couple more stats for Gen Z. They don't want quick answers, but they want a relationship in trusted conversations. This is ideal. I mean, one of the strengths of the program you're in is you have somebody that you trust and who you can bounce stuff off of, who's a little bit further down the road than you are as mentees. And this is great, because you're right in there. I was surprised by that. I thought that they just want quick answers, but that's not the case. They really want these relationships and connection. And I think a large part of that is because the family's so broken, and a lot of people don't have a mom and dad who are on the same page, giving like a solid affront to the kids, being like, oh, this is what's right and what's wrong. So having these mentors and conversations like this is huge. Christians in today, who are in this generation, have a negative view of church, or church is irrelevant, which is tough, because you would think people who are Christians, who identify as Christians, would be like, yeah, I'm going to get my answers from my church friends. That's not the case for most Christians, according to this research in 2018 that this guy Barna did. The authority is now science. We talk about morality. How are you basing what's right, what's wrong, what ought to be, what not ought to be? And science is king. If science says, well, then it must be. That view is called scientism, when you believe that science is authority. Relativism is another issue of this generation. They don't believe in an absolute truth, per se. You can be true for you, but not for me. Well, that can be the case for opinions. And I think a lot of people confuse opinions and truth. You can have an opinion that can be true for you, but not for me. Like, you may really like butter pecan ice cream. You may think it's the best ever. What if I don't? It's not true for me. But I think it's really good, though. I like butter pecan ice cream. That's what I thought about it. That's my example. Maybe you disagree, though, and you're wrong. No, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I'm just saying it's true. But when it comes to, well, God exists, or no, he doesn't, no. Now we've got an issue, because there's a lot of implications with that belief. So where do you go for truth? Is it science? Is science the ultimate? No. This is a big one today. I teach 10th grade Bible. So I have 15, 16-year-olds, sometimes 17, and they're learning to drive. It's a lot of identity stuff, because they're spreading their wings, right, leaving the house with their driver's licenses, and we have a lot of good conversations. A lot of it comes around sex. I also teach the New Testament class, And so sexuality comes up a great deal because of, well, we're people, right? And once you hit puberty, it's an issue, right? People want to express themselves sexually, and we've got to figure out, okay, now, what does that mean? What's the right way to do this? And ask the question, well, what is sexual expression for? Why are we male and female? And what's God's design for that? But if you don't have a biblical framework for that, then now people believe that as long as it's consensual, then it's okay, which can get pretty ridiculous. How do you know it's consensual? Anyway, this can be pretty dicey, but it opens the door to a lot of behaviors that are popular today that would not have been popular, let's say, 20 years ago, because it's a new generation. All right, and finally, only 4%, according to Barna, have a biblical worldview of Generation Z. 4% of Americans believe the basic tenets of Christianity, according to these guys. And I look at the list, look at well, how are they defining biblical worldview? And it was like, God exists, the Bible is real, Jesus died for my sins, maybe one or two other ones. So like really basic church type stuff. It was a little scary to read that. All right, it's not all bad though. Don't get too down. There's a sunny side. What are the positives we're looking at? One of them is the diversity, whether it be racial diversity or diversity of ideas. People are pretty open-minded and they don't shut you down. It's not, depending on the issue, I should say that. Empathy. There's some empathy now with people. They want to connect on an emotional level. They want to feel for other people. There are a lot of people identified as social justice warriors. You hear this term, SJW. And some of the things that they do can be pretty extreme. But if you look at their motivation, I think a lot of it's justice-based. I think a lot of it's love-based. Like, I think so-and-so ought to be treated with honor and respect, and therefore we should do this. Or so-and-so has been mistreated and they need to be restored, or whatever that is. And so that doesn't mean it's bad. I think that's something that we can really tap in on, because that's a biblical thing. To care for the orphan, the widow, the sojourner, and the stranger in your land. Like, God's all about somebody who's in need, and us meeting their needs. So that's a good thing. Openness. It's not a closed group. They're ready to talk about ideas. I get a lot of cool questions in class, and they're ready to bounce it around. Some people are afraid of argumentation. My wife got me a course, this is what a nerd I am. She got me a course a couple years ago, and I was painting this room. I painted it red. Have you ever painted a room red? Mistake, okay? I love her. So I painted red once, and so I got the first coat on, and somebody said, it's hard to get that deep red tone. So add a little bit of black to the primer, and you don't have to paint it so much. So I go to Lowe's, or Home Depot, I think it was Lowe's, and get some primer in there. And so I put that first coat of primer on, and then I put the red over it, but now the black is coming through the red. I'm just like, oh my goodness. I had a cell phone at one point, like I was done, I looked at it, and I had a cell phone, and I was like so angry. I was like, because I didn't want to break my cell phone. I was like, and it bounced on the floor. Anyway, I was talking about that. I'm not sure how we got there. Anybody know? Red, Anchor. I was listening to a DVD she got me, or CD, that's what it was. She got me a CD to do that, because I had to paint it so many times. I was in that room for hours. And so she got me all these great courses, and it was called Argumentation. And it taught me that argumentation is good. I've always been conflict averse. My personality is like really easygoing, and so people get upset. I'm like, I can go away, make a joke, and that's what I do. I make a joke and make people laugh, and then try to avoid the subject. But one, that's not the way to do it. If you really want to get to the bottom of the issue, you need to hash it out and tell your opinion. And if my opinion's wrong, or the way I'm viewing it's wrong, well then I should change the way I view it to view it like you do, because you're right. But if you're not right, well then I have to sharpen my position to make it stronger, to be whatever is false that you believe. So for both parties, it's beneficial to actually argue. I came from a family that arguing was no. And I get the whole don't talk about your parents. I have children. I'm in certain, no. This is not a back and forth time. This is the authority time where just get in the car. Okay? Please. I can't be late again. All right. Anyway, but argumentation is good. So this generation's open to that. They're open to having a back and forth, which is really beneficial. And finally, they're empty. And this is the sad part. But we know the truth. We know if you don't have Jesus, you don't have hope. And you're not loved. Not really. Not with the love that he can give. And whatever you do is meaningless. That's what he says. Apart from me, you can do nothing. We can't be good without him. And people say, well, I'm decent. Not compared to him. And nothing you do will last forever until you're connected with him. And so this emptiness is a symptom, right, of being apart from God. However, it's an opportunity as well to connect people with the one true God, and that he can be their leader. I follow this blog called Church and Culture. This guy's a pastor in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he's got a really successful church. And his deal is, we want to church people who don't go to church. So he's out there, he's not even transfer growth. He's like, I want people who do not know God to come to our church, to be loved, to be attracted to that love, and to the one who it loves. And become disciples of Jesus. And so he's always talking about the next generation and how to do church. And he's always reevaluating his methods. Like, we're doing this the best way we can to get as many people to know Jesus as we can. And so I really enjoyed, even though I'm not a church pastor, I enjoy reading his blog every week. And he talks about Generation Alpha. Now, the next generation hasn't been named yet. And it's people who've been born 2010 or later. This is when the iPad was invented or released, 2010. It's been 9 years ago. So if you're 9, right, this is you. Probably not in this room. Let's see, is there 9 in here? No? Okay. I thought it was an older crowd, right? 8th grade? 13. Okay. All right. So what's the deal with these guys? They're really good at swiping, right? We're talking to Alexa, Siri, where are you? These people are listening to us, and they want to do our bidding. There's going to be 2.5 million every week born in the world. It's like today. Isn't that unreal? You think about 2.5 million people were born today? Doesn't seem real, does it? It's a big place. Whenever I go to the airport, I'm always amazed at all the people. Look at all these people. And they're just people on airplanes. But there's so many of them. It makes me want to pray. And I'm like, so many, Lord, so many. And this will be the most resourced generation that's coming up. Anyway, I like this. Hey, look at this. This is cool too. The freshman mindset, this is college, puts out a list of attributes about college freshmen. So last year in August, this came out. I haven't seen the one this year. I don't think it's been released yet. But for these freshmen last year, outer space was never been without human habitation. There have always been people living in space, like on a space station. Isn't that crazy? They've always been able to, lost it. A little eager there with the touching. They've always been able to refer to Wikipedia. That's normal. They've grown to be afraid that a shooting could happen at their school too. I never thought about that. I bet you didn't either when you were growing up, mentors. That somebody's going to shoot at your school. That's a real thing today. People have anxiety about going to school because of this. People loudly conversing with themselves in public are no longer thought to be talking to imaginary friends. This also happens at the airport, right? Is he talking to me? Then you see some little white thing in his ear. It's like, oh, okay. Somebody else. Afghanistan has always been a frustrating quagmire that keeps on giving. When filling out forms, they are not surprised to find more than 2 gender categories to choose from. A couple more. You've got mail would sound just as ancient to them as number please would have sounded to their parents. Anybody get the number please thing? Yeah. Operator, right? Number please? What? Who are you? Oh. The abortion pill has always been available since they've been alive. Robots have always been able to walk on 2 legs and upstairs. Oprah has always been a magazine. What? Films have always been distributed on the internet. So the movie houses, right? And they've grown up with stories about when their grandparents, what would happen when John F. Kennedy was shot, and when the planes hit the towers. Hey, there's a new Hulu show. Do you know this? 11/22/63. It's based on the Stephen King novel. That's all I know. Wow. Okay. Back to our longings here. So the emptiness and brokenness that people are experiencing, which I wouldn't say is due to humanity, but there are three of these. By John R. Stott, it says that it's transcendence. People want to be involved or connected to something bigger than themselves, especially a deity of some sort. He also says that people long for significance. They want their lives to matter. I just want to be some accident or some cog in a big machine that doesn't make a difference. I mean, we read stories and we watch movies and we read articles about people who make a difference. And we're inspired by them and we want to do it too. That's a normal human longing. And they're for community. People want to be loved. They want to be known by other people and have real relationships. And so if they disappeared, somebody would know, and they would come after them. They don't want to be some anonymous person who just goes home and isn't known by anyone. So these longings, what do we have to offer as Christians, as mentors and as future mentors? For transcendence. We know God. Like, we know the answer. We know that God created us and loves us, and even though we're broken, He wants to rescue us. Check. Significance. Are you significant? Yeah, the scripture says that God knows you. He knew you in your mother's womb, that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Not only that, but that God has a plan for you, and He has works that He's planned for you to do beforehand, the scripture says. That's a significant thing. Like, there's nobody like you. Somebody like you. You're special, and God has a plan for you. Check. Community. We've got the best community going, guys. The Church of Jesus Christ is the number one. I mean, what better group? I was telling my wife this afternoon, I was going to talk to her. She says, how's it going? I was like, these people are great. Those volunteers this morning, they all love God. They all love the Bible. They all want their kids to know who God is. This is wonderful. Look at these people. It's so fun. Why? Because we have a bond. Like, when I walked in, I didn't know anybody. Not really. I mean, I'd met Jan before.